Hi, this is Daniel, and thank you for joining me. This presentation is an excerpt that I created when we were designing our training facilities in the New York office for a company I used to work for. I apologize for the audio, as the only microphone I have available right now is a Bluetooth microphone. I'm going to go through this presentation fairly quickly so that way I can upload it and then include it for the class. Try it yourself. The contents of this presentation include an introduction, talking about the use of space, computers, wiring, screens, lighting and sound, projector, furniture, training room layout, and a brief summary. Things that you would need to consider when you are designing and setting up a training room. Although this is an online class, this talks about a face-to-face training classroom. There are several things we need to keep in mind when we're designing our room and equipment. One is client satisfaction, flexibility, and cost. While budget considerations are important, we do need to make some choices so that they meet best practices and we design for the long term. There's no sense in going through the process and spending money if it's not going to meet our needs, be useful, and be efficient. Use of the space. This facility will be under the direction of the IS staff and will be primarily used for technology training, including software and technology equipment, desktops, laptops, peripherals, telephones, that kind of stuff. Training and topics related to business practice will also be included, such as soft skills. Besides the legal staff, business etiquette, doing business in the global world, cultural differences. We'll also talk about building relationships and use the training room for communication skills, team building, and interpersonal skills training. Computers. What type of computers are we going to be using in this training room? Well, since this is a face-to-face class and primarily the audience is going to be administrative staff, we decided that we're going to use desktops. And we can also use larger flat-top screens and upgrade when necessary. Laptops will only be used when we have attorney training. And since they have smaller screens, we thought that we would start this training room off with a good set of desktop computers for the main training audience. Wiring alternatives. There are different wiring considerations. We want to make sure that wires are not interfering with the movement and that they're unsightly and to get in the way of training. So here are several alternatives. We're going to recommend that we put in a minimally raised floor or raceways along the floor so we can arrange the stations and computers in any configuration for any purpose. Here are some wiring examples. As you can see, this is an old presentation. We didn't actually use CRT monitors. We used flat panels, but this is a picture that I found online. So we're going to make sure that we have cable management so that we don't have this mess of wires that people might either kick or trip over, and that the space is a little clean and orderly. Ceiling, screen height, ceiling height, and line of sight considerations. When you're designing a presentation room or any kind of room that's going to have projection and a screen, we always need to make sure that it is high enough so that other people don't block the learner's observation. In the picture you see here, it's too low, and the teacher as well as another student are blocking part of the screen. So that really doesn't help us for people who are sitting in the back. We want to make sure that everybody can see the screen and learn without any interference. Here are some guidelines for screen size. The correct size of projection screen is determined by the distance that the furthest viewer is from the screen. In our proposed design, the furthest viewer would be about 28 feet away. And here are some screen sizes for those distances. As you can see in the picture, the further the person is from the screen, the larger the screen needs to be. With distances, the ceiling-mounted video projector will require a throw distance that is high enough and wide enough to meet the screen, and in this case, the throw distance we chose was 16 feet, so that the image can be large enough. Here are some recommendations about viewing angles, and this is important when you're designing the width of your training room and how people are going to be situated and seated. We don't want them to be too far to the side because the optimal angle for viewing is 30 degrees, as you see from the second row of images. Anyone that's further out on those from that angle will have a difficulty seeing everything that's on the screen, and it will look distorted. Lighting considerations. We should be able to dim the lighting, at least where the screen is concerned, because there are times when we want a dark background and light text. Experience shows that turning off the ceiling lights immediately front of the white screen and dimming the fixtures over the viewers by even 1% usually gives good results. Controls should be located at the front and back of the class so that the trainer won't have to walk back and forth if they need to change the lighting. Here's an example of some lighting controls with some quick defaults already built in so they can change quickly. Here are two pictures that display, and I apologize for the text being behind a couple of pictures. This image in this slide basically talks about changing lighting so that it is optimal in the classroom. Nothing has been changed as far as the actual fixtures, but only the way they are used in the classroom and the types of bulbs. So we always want to make sure that the classroom is well lit. Sound considerations. We want to make sure that everybody can hear everything, and we have to make sure that there are not sounds from outside the room, heating and ventilation, or any interruption. It's a good idea in some cases, depending on the size of your training room, to add speakers at the opposite side of where the main speaker will be presenting. Also, when you're designing and setting up your training room, you want to keep heating and air conditioning noise low. So it's a good idea at the beginning to use dampeners and install things correctly at the very beginning, because otherwise HVAC systems can cause a lot of noise, and once it's been installed and your training room is all built, it's very difficult to correct for these noises. Here's an example also of the trainer's lectern, or trainer spot. Here are just some considerations to keep in mind, as a trainer will need ample space for their own computer, keyboard, presentation documents, other kinds of equipment. And here you see in the little picture below VCR, so you can tell how old this presentation is. Here are some examples of computer tables that we decided to look into with extended keyboards, extendable keyboard platforms. In our training room, we actually did use flat panel screens, but these are, again, the only pictures that I could find that would give an example of how we could manage the equipment and for our consideration as far as furniture in the classroom. Here is the first initial training room layout that we are considering. As you can see, we wanted to make enough space for there to be 12 students. We didn't want it to be too much larger, because we don't want to have classes with more than 12 participants. And here you can also see the layout includes the throw distance, the screen size, placement of other equipment, and the presenter's lectern. In summary, when determining the design features and equipment, we need to approach this with best practices in mind. Some options may have a higher upfront cost, but we shouldn't forfeit a good quality learning center to save a little bit of money. In some cases, the choice between the first option and the next may not seem significant in itself, except when taking into account the cumulative effect of going second best. Choosing one option for one feature will affect the options available in other features.